welcome back to the Irish Racing YouTube channel. Back with another episode of the Irish Angle. This week it's just myself and Johnny Ward. Vincent Finnegan is gone off sunning himself somewhere in Spain, I think, for a week or two, but he'll be back next week, thankfully. But Johnny, just me and you today. How are you keeping?
Yeah, well, I'm the quality racing over the weekend. Obviously, I suppose the race people talked about most happened in Scotland, but good stuff from the Curragh. And I was racing in Ballinrobe on Friday. Real bumper crowds. I was racing in Downroyal yesterday. I think there was kind of a feeling there. People were looking forward to watching Rory McIlroy in the golf. But yeah, cracking weekend racing and a hell of a title race you have now in Britain.
I suppose before we move on to the big stuff from Britain and stuff, we might just give a mention to this weekend's action. You mentioned Ballinrobe. Always a great track to get a good crowd, good atmosphere there, I say, no doubt.
Yeah, I'd say it was literally the biggest crowd I've experienced in possibly ever at Ballinrobe. Or certainly, I remember. I think it's the first racetrack I remember going to as a kid, or maybe the second, Galway or Ballinrobe, and that was quite exotic for me as a kid to go somewhere like that. But the track has just constantly been trying to improve since, and John Clanley, the manager, was keen that I do a piece on the new changing room for the female riders. I didn't actually get a chance to do it really, but there was a lot of praise for it in recognition of the fact that it had been in the news in terms of the British facilities this week. But at one point, I wanted to just go over to the toilet through the parade ring, and it was actually a challenge getting through the betting ring. Sorry, the betting ring was so packed with people. And then this is something, Emma, that I feel is massively gone from the racetrack experience. And I think it's a bad thing. Like, horses will jump the last and there won't be a meg out of the crowd, like nothing, just people watching in absolute silence, which is kind of strange when you consider, I mean, it's a sporting event and all that. Jeez, the Ballinrobe, they were roaring the moment. Horse called Tomás O'Malley won. He's named after a local Gaelic football hero, Tommy O'Malley. And it was actually like something out of a festival when he came in, but only a lot louder. There was a massive roar. But for every race, there was real energy from the crowd. And the difference in a meeting like that compared to the run-of-the-mill meetings where there's just no life in the place whatsoever. I'm not saying, Ballinrobe have gotten everything. Ballinrobe on Friday, the weather was so good and it's a popular meeting and all of that, and Ballinrobe gets plenty of praise, but they continue to do so much right. And they probably benefit from the fact that it's a small, sort of compact race track, whereas the likes of, say, Fairyhouse, Punchestown, if it's a small meeting, it's hard to fit them into an enclosed space. But really, if Ballinrobe can do this, like, how can the likes of Leopardstown not get more people from Dublin to go to flat meetings? It's Ballinrobe, a tiny town really in rural Ireland, can get much bigger crowds than Leopardstown, and even the Curragh for much of the time. It's a bit of a mystery to me, but I came back from that meeting wondering, like, what can other tracks learn from Ballinrobe? Because, I mean, the racing is grand. It's not amazing. It's just the atmosphere is incredible.
Yeah, some of those country tracks do a great job. They kind of bring a kind of local community element to the racing. So I was actually in the Curragh myself on Saturday. And to be fair, it's probably a track that gets plenty of slating, and people probably just like slating it for the sake of it sometimes. But it was actually quite a nice crowd at the Curragh on Saturday. Like, I was kind of going out there expecting tumbleweeds, and maybe for the first race there was a few around, but kind of people started to gather in and get inside there. Inside the stand was quite busy, and there was a few people pottering around outside as well. So I think I wasn't at the first meeting in the Curragh, but I think the reports were that the kind of crowds were a bit up on what they would have been last year as well. So hopefully it might be a sign of things to come. The Curragh probably maybe struggled for a couple of years getting that kind of local community back racing as well, but seemed to be more than expected, I suppose, at the weekend, from what I thought. Anyway, we'll give a bit of a mention to more flat racing towards the end of the show. I was actually in Ballydoyle this morning myself for the media morning, and we'll talk about a few kind of hot topics that came out of that. But I suppose firstly, the big kind of thing going on now at the moment, the UK trainers title, the big clash, Mullins and Skelton, and the Scottish National over the weekend. It was very unfortunate to see last year's winner McDermott, as well as other horses, losing their life throughout the race. It was a bit of a helter-skelter watch, I suppose, but another big result for Mullins. Johnny, he got the 1-2, and Paul Nicholls' stable jockey Harry Cobden playing a big role in Mullins' title challenge. You couldn't really hide it, could you?
Yeah, like, and I've always gotten a great kick out of these jockeys, like British jockeys winning for Irish trainers, and this one was a bit left field. Like, I used to enjoy when Aidan O'Brien would have the local riders riding for him in the big races, and like Harry Cobden riding, and the style of the win as well. Like, it was such a cool ride on the winner, and for all that he did a nice bit in hand, I suppose. Harry Cobden definitely helped. I think his attitude was like, riding a horse Willie Mullins makes it easy, but I don't think a massive interest in trainers' titles or jockeys' titles necessarily, but it has been a really good story, and it's just so tight at the moment, Emma. Like, it's tiny margin. Massively swayed, obviously, by, it's like that fantasy football picking your captain. Well, the national is like picking your captain several times over with prize money, and obviously Willie, that gave him the platform to do it, which he should definitely do it now. But I mean, the runners that he's sending over to these tracks, it also advertises them. I feel that some of the prize money that you can actually get over there, as much as British racing is maligned, it's actually not that bad when they put an effort into particular meetings, as was the case again this weekend. And Harry Cobden, I imagine he will want to ride as many horses as he can for Willie Mullins going forward.
Yeah, it was a cheeky ride, and I think the instructions for Willie was ride him like you're a woman or something along those lines. I think Johnny Townend normally gets the best out of that horse, but yeah, it was brilliant. You had the 1-2. I think he bagged over 150k in prize money. So like you said, even I was looking at his entries in the UK. He's got 13 or 14 in Cheltenham on Wednesday, I think. And I was kind of thinking, looking at it, actually, the prize money mustn't be great there Wednesday in Cheltenham, but like, there's a few handicaps there worth 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 pounds. So prize money in the UK maybe not as bad as we all lamented for, but just looking ahead to Sandown, he's got, I think, 18 in the bet 365. I think the bookies have him 1-6, 1-7 favourite. Like, it's hard to see him getting beat now, and like, even seeing him bringing these horses to those big handicaps, like, he's not really a trainer who handicaps horses for handicap chases, but like, he kind of just throws horses in there. Like, even I was looking at the entries, like Impere Pass is entered for the Bet 365 Gold Cup over 3 mile 4. Like, this is a horse who's won 2 Grade 1 novice chases over 2 mile 3 this year. Like, but you kind of expect him to if he showed up there, you'd still say, geez, he'll probably win that if he goes. It's just kind of the way Willie Mullins is, isn't it, Johnny?
Yeah, and that's it. Like, and he has an awful lot of his horses are bought to be good chasers, and a lot of them will end up obviously not being quite top class, but they'll be very eligible for races like this. And then you get a load of horses. The Grand National isn't really a race that you lay out horse to protect their mark as much anymore. So he'll get the top horses running in it, and he'll get very good handicappers as well. Obviously, like we saw in the entry. And I think the way the season has gone is, Gavin Cromwell has started to target Britain a lot more, and you see other trainers doing it. I feel if you look at the logistics of sending horses over on the boat to Britain, it can work well in your favour if you can certainly bring them over if you bring few over for one day's racing, because travelling around Ireland is obviously very expensive as it is. So if you can get the boat over and target meetings over there, given the relative strength of British jumps racing compared to Ireland, why not? But he's assault on the, as you say, at Sandown. It's really kind of all hands on deck now to get over the line, and you imagine that he will.
Yeah, you'd imagine so. I think he's just under £2,000 behind Skelton at the moment, and fair bit of firepower. He'll be hard to stop now, I'd say. But we'll move backwards a small bit next. I think going back to the Grand National, a few kind of topics to touch on there. From the UK Grand National first. Unfortunate news first off, I suppose. Celebre D'Allen, we kind of reported on the show last week that he obviously suffered heat exhaustion after the race, but unfortunately subsequently lost his life, Johnny. Not something we ever want to see after any race, and in the Grand National in particular, I suppose.
No, I suppose, and the publicity around the Scottish national victims wasn't so much as this, but I suppose it's still the race that stopped the nation, or certainly stopped some of the nation. I just don't know what to make of this, Emma, because like he was a 13-year-old horse who passed away. Like, it's not in itself all that newsworthy. Now, the jockey should have, like, the jockey in hindsight obviously should have, and the stewards were on it. He should have pulled him up. He was getting tired. I think the prize money $5,000 back to 10. So maybe he was thinking of that. I think Michael Nolan came out afterwards and said, that nobody was more heartbroken than him. But I don't know. I quoted I quoted Pat O'Donnell, was it on the show last week, about it. I just the whole kind of media coverage of the subsequent death of the horse, and then even this like publication of the outcome that it may not have resulted from the race itself that he died. It was just like, well, like he's a 13-year-old racehorse who's died. Like, do we really need to give this much coverage? There's so much else that we could be looking at. And you'd nearly be. I mean, you'd nearly be afraid to run the horse in the national in case something goes wrong. Like, they're racehorses, they go into combat and they're extremely well looked after. Like, relative to the meat industry, horses do quite well out of life. And I think we should be maybe looking at other issues than this. I just thought there was too much made of it. He should have pulled the horse up, but like, horses over jumps are going to suffer fatal injuries. That's just nature of it. And we can't just, we can't be focusing so much on the death of a horse, a 13-year-old horse. All these days later, for me, I maybe it's different in Britain, but like in Ireland, I think people just like, you get on with it. We've other horses to look after now.
Yeah, and I thought the kind of abuse Micheál Nolan got on Twitter was bang out of order as well. Like you said, like he obviously made a mistake on the day. He should have pulled the horse up, but like watching it back, it's not as if he was hammering the horse home for a mile. Like, the horse got tired very, very quickly, and we should have pulled him up and didn't, and got his ban and move on from there. Like, I don't know, anyone writing abuse to jockeys like that on Twitter would probably want to reevaluate a few things. I'd say just bang out of order. But we'll move on. Another topic from the Grand National. We didn't get a chance to cover it last week, but Paddy Power customers were probably a little bit aggrieved after the Grand National last week. Johnny, they decided to offer, I think, 8 places each way, offer the extra place instead of best odds guaranteed on the day. So anyone who would have backed the winner, Nick Rocket, in the morning, could have backed him as low as 16-1 and got paid out in that rather than his SP of 33s. You wouldn't be too happy with that, would you?
No, I maybe a slightly contrarian view on this, Emma. Like, I've been against best odds guaranteed for a long time at this stage, because I think they completely devalue odds compiling. And I think, if you ask your friend, if you're having a debate about a horse race with your mates in the pub on a Friday night, and he or she says, "Yeah, I lay you 6-4 that horse," he's not going to be laying you best odds guaranteed. Why would he? Like, sure, I mean, the whole point is this is the price of the horse, and basically, if you like it, good. If you don't, jump. Like, it's fine. This situation then, when people got used to best odds guaranteed, obviously, now in fairness, it's kind of gone out of a lot of the bookmaking industry now. And for me, the worry is that a lot of the odds some of these firms are offering in horse racing are really, really poor. They're just moving away from racing and they've no real interest in it. But I did have sympathy for the staff, because I suppose it's become so normalised now. 14s out of 33s is such a drift. And the staff having to basically defend something that, in my view, isn't even necessarily a story. Like, if you're putting on the bet, check if you're getting best odds guaranteed or not. If not, bet it at SP or bet on the show. But I felt sorry for the staff, because I think anecdotally there was a lot of having to deal with people saying, why am I getting like a tenner at 14 is 150, tenner at 33 is 340. Like, it's a big difference. So I have sympathy for the staff, but like, I just prefer if bookmakers actually priced up race anymore, rather than one of them doing it and everyone copying that and not laying bets. I'd much prefer if they priced up race and took a view rather than they guaranteed odds.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd say, like, you wouldn't, I don't know, me personally, maybe it's wrong, where you wouldn't always check the terms. You'd probably assume if you're betting in the morning, you're probably going to get best odds guaranteed. And just to change it for one race was a bit strange, I'd say. But yeah, look, maybe it's up to the punches to check the terms, and definitely out of order to be given the Paddy Power staff abuse. It's absolutely nothing to do with them. But we'll move on to
an old goal in terms of like, but this I've seen this with Paddy Power before, where there was a good story of I was told this is where Paddy Power has changed a lot for me, whereas the fund has got out of it an awful lot in terms of the way it operates. And maybe Paddy Power and other bookmakers have been kind of really bruised by negative publicity and all that. And I get that, but like, Paddy Power was like the Ryanair of the industry. It was really ballsy, brilliant ads, like the two old ladies crossing the road, the Zimmer frames, all that really ballsy stuff that was ultimately like, if you get a complaint to the advertising authority, you're winning or whatever. But like, I remember the story of how a couple of people I knew had backed basically, it was like a half-time bet in Gaelic football based on the wind that was prevalent that day. And there was a real technicality in the end that Paddy Power wouldn't pay out. And I actually thought the old Paddy Power would have made a big story out of it, how these people had looked at Google Maps basically to figure out how the wind was blowing in certain tracks that day. They'd stung the bookies, this clever way of doing it. And instead they just argued the point that the bet had expired. Stuff like that, basically, where, you could get publicity out of it. Paddy Power just, I don't know, they seem to have lost that kind of punter's pal type attitude that they had. And I'm not knocking them or any other bookmaker because it's racing isn't what it was, but it was probably a known goal in terms of PR, I suppose.
Yeah, it kind of seems as if horse racing punters aren't really top of the pile for those big bookmakers anymore. It's probably not the same, I suppose, big revenue stream as it used to be. But we'll move on from there. I think Irish National is next on the agenda. You've been doing a few pieces for Racing TV around the Irish National, Johnny. Bit of excitement building up for it, and it looks like a classy renewal this year as well.
Yeah, like load of horses are going to be pulled out from the top. So I imagine a lot of connections are kind of holding on to hope that they'll get in, and they might well get in. It's just a really anomalous race this in that it just hasn't, for some reason, a lot of small yards still win it, a lot of long shots win it, and like Willie Mullins hadn't won it until relatively recently. Gavin Cromwell hasn't won it. Henry de Bromhead hasn't won it. So it's kind of strange in that regard. Look at the likes of Kinter Calanisi for Tom Gibney, who's obviously a great record in the race, coming in off a low weight. But I loved you might see it on Race TV this week. Did a couple of the yards, but good on Team Donoghue and the work that they've done with Dunboyne, turning him from a horse who looked like he was on the verge of retirement to potentially winning 3 races in a row, culminating in the Irish National. And I spent a bit of time at Screen Gallops and saw like the Donoghue family all there, and it was really cool. But the just visiting the yards around the Meath area, like it makes you going around Tara, Screen, that general neck of the woods, Ratho, it reminds you how big racing is to locality. And like Kiva Cromwell, Gavin's wife, tell me about all the people who had come out for the homecoming in Screen at the GA club, like 1,000 people or something, for I know the way you're thinking. And then you saw Bellewstown on Saturday, all county Meath trainers, like how massive racing is in that locality. And I know people will knock the government for the money it gives to racing and that in terms of prize money, but it goes massively back to jobs in Northern Ireland. You see, that day in Meath, it really felt like horse racing country, and really looking forward to the race now.
Yeah, it did, and I think they paraded all of the the winners. Was it at Navan Racecourse as well? A few days after the Gold Cup, was it the Navan train or the Meath trained winners at Cheltenham or something along those lines? But another great reception for Willie as well coming back. We didn't mention that. It was brilliant to see. There was great photos, Ted and Ruby and Willie and Patrick. And it was actually interesting. There was someone put the question to Aidan O'Brien today about how it felt to, obviously he has all that experience of having his sons and daughters riding winners for him. And he even kind of found it hard to put it into words. But I think the pictures from the homecoming, I wasn't actually there now, but even seeing them riding the horses down the street, it was brilliant to see. And kind of just seems like the Mullins family are maybe, like we're talking about this UK Trainers Title Challenge, but they're probably fairly content now with their season, seeing the images from there.
Yeah, that it must be absolutely magic. Like, as a father myself, life changes when you have a child, and to see, if you then have your child as a jockey, like it's a dangerous sport, and like there's a lot of pressure, a lot of worry every time your jockey falls. And riding in the national, on a 33-1 shot as it was, there's a lot of emotion there. And the fact that Patrick at mid-30s now, he's not very unlikely to win the national going into the race. He's very unlikely ever to win the national, and he's pulled it off. And it must have been incredible for Willie to have all those horses in contention, but then his only son winning the race. I can't imagine. We don't. I don't think we understand what the pressure must be like at times if you get your child into a sport because of your own love for it. Like, imagine how Aidan O'Brien felt when Anna had that desperate fall. Was it in Killarney back in the day? Like, in the horror that went through him that night. Like, there's a lot of pressure to it, and when it works out like that, and I do remember Charles Byrne saying to me in relation to they gambled on horse one day. I remember, and it was kind of holding on for a place. It came down at the last. He's just like, as long as Philip came back okay, that's all that matters. And you can absolutely see why there's so much pressure involved in your son or daughter being a rider. But on a day like Saturday, there must be nothing like it.
Yeah, and seeing like you were mentioning, a great sense of community as well around the Mullins family. The local area seemed to get a great kick out of their success there. But before we move on, kind of from national chat, you were saying, you've been to plenty of the yards around the Meath area ahead of the national. What's your kind of key takeaway, and who's your horse to follow in the national?
I thought Gavin Cromwell on Noble Birth was fairly sweet on his chance. He's lowish. I'm just looking at how far down he is in the weights. if you look at the top of the, like, a lot of these horses, unfortunately, some of them are no longer with us, but a lot of these horses just aren't going to run. They ran at age or whatever. At the moment, Noble Bert is, if I get it up here, he is down at 58. I'd say that as much as it's only 30 runners, I'd say he still has a squeak because there'll be an awful lot of horses pulled out. He's running off 132. Beat one at Ferryhouse the last day. Was obviously with the McNamara's, and then the inbound syndicate horses moved on to Gavin Cromwell. He's done very well since he came over here. He'd have a bit of a chance, I thought, if he gets in. I thought Gavin was fairly sweet on him. Much depend on the ground, Emma, because rain is badly needed this week.
Yeah, for sure. You'd imagine there'd be plenty of water going down if we don't get a bit of rain. Did he have any mention for bioluminescence? She was an interesting entry, I thought. Is she likely to go there?
No, she's going. I can't exactly remember where. I think she might go for a grade one as well. Yeah, reckons she's not running anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of a good race for novices. I don't know, their days ahead could be interesting on showing up there for Gordon as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure Gavin Cromwell will have a fair battalion going. But we'll move on from national chat to a bit of flat chat. Like I was saying, I was in Ballydoyle this morning. Johnny, you were kind of saying maybe towards the end of last flat season that you're being swayed more towards being a flat man at the moment. Are you still getting that feeling now coming to the end of this National 1 season?
Yeah, I've been that way for quite a while, to be honest. Like I've found Dundalk harder work now this year as the season went on. I taught him that's a lot of I taught the extra meeting at Dundalk as much as it caters for a horse population. I really felt, and even from a punting perspective, I found that it was a lot of the same horses, and the appeal of Dundalk has gone back a bit for me. Maybe it's just too much low grade racing, but generally on the flat, like I love this time of year seeing new sires coming out, and we've some very, very good young trainers in Ireland as well, even taking on Aidan O'Brien, and we're in a kind of a post Galileo world as well. So to see how the relatively new stallions will get on, and just how, like, the standard of flat racing in Ireland with respect to the jumps racing, it's a bit like rugby. It's still very few countries have quality jumps race, whereas the flat is much more pronounced all over the world in terms of its appeal. And we have, like, maybe with the best trainer in the world, we certainly have some of the best horses in the world here. And I love watching good flat racing, and I'm really looking forward to the campaign.
Yeah, I am now as well. I'm just going to give a mention to some of the main talking points from Ballydoyle, and you can mention at the end if anything tickles your fancy. So I just picked out a few of the stuff I thought was most interesting of what was put to Aidan. Guineas team, it sounds like Twin expanded will be the top two. Twin will go straight to the Guineas and could go straight to the Derby after that if all goes well there. Lake Victoria was kind of a talking horse from the Irish press morning a few weeks ago. They were saying she might not make the Guineas, but it sounded a little more positive this morning. He said she stepped forward a bit and could get there in time, but she'll go to the Daisy if she doesn't make the Guineas. But I thought he sounded relatively positive about her chances of going there. The Lion in Winter, obviously, was a little bit behind as well when we last heard about him. He's going to go straight to the Dante. Aidan said he'll be about 80% fit there, and we'll go to the Derby after that, all going well. And he could be Twain there, like I said. If Twain wins the Guineas, they'd be keen to go to the Derby there with him as well. Obviously from the family of Galileo by Wooten Bassett, they'd imagine he'd get the trip. Talking about a few older horses then, Los Angeles was a topic of conversation. I thought it was quite interesting. He's going to stick to about 10 furlongs and a mile and a half this year. I asked Aidan what he thought his best trip was, and he said 10 furlongs to a mile and a half. He doesn't think he's a mile and 6 horse, which really would be something he might have been pigeonholed as last year after winning an Irish Derby. Well, he's going to go for the Galley, the Tattersalls, the Prince of Wales, and then possibly end up in the Arc again. He could be met there by Kyprios, who they've reported is back in training and in great form. And the Arc kind of sounded like, after obviously the Gold Cup at Ascot, the Arc could be the long-term target there for him. And a thing particularly interesting in there, Johnny, I suppose no massive news. I thought Kyprios possibly going for the Arc could be exciting enough.
Yeah, I sort of I was banging that drum bit last year about him going for the Arc. I thought it was worth the shot. And he's going to be, I guess he's going to be one of these kind of staying types, goes down the national and stallion route. But like, maybe you run him in the Arc, and if he wins it, might offer a different perspective on it. But you were saying, I thought it was interesting. You were saying how many Wooten Bassett Saloni has there this year, and how much, like, it's going to be a big year. The likes of Twain and all of these sort of 3-year-olds coming on, and Aidan, since, as far as I know, No Name never hasn't had a classic winner yet off the top of my head. And a lot of the sires, I mean, you look at Moorfront was an absolute disaster for Coolmore. A lot of the sires work, some of them are middling, most sires are failures. But in a post-Galileo world, they have, I mean, Wooten Bassett, who was it Almanzora kind of put him on the map at the time. That Coolmore put an awful lot of emphasis on him.
Yeah, for sure. I think they said they had 42-year-olds, around 38 or 42-year-olds by Wood and Bassett. And there was one he gave of note to really keep an eye out for was Out of Hints by Wood and Bassett. I don't know was there a name on it yet, but probably one to put in your notebooks if you're looking for a 2-year-old from Ballydoyle. But I'd say we've got pretty much everything covered there, Johnny. A bit of flap at a national one. But before we kind of finish up, we'll go with the horse to follow. Anything you saw during the week or looking forward even?
Yeah, I suppose I might as well give a horse from a meeting that I was at. Considering I was at the Curragh is probably the place to start from in terms of the horse to follow, but I was at the two Jones meetings, so I give one of them, and didn't expect to be doing this, but I might actually give Pied Piper as my horse to follow. He ran a 2.5 mile beginner's chase in Downroyal against Encanto Bruno and Bingeworthy, and he absolutely hammered them. I'm not entirely sure what he achieved, because I think Encanto Bruno was weak in the market and didn't run to his best. And Pied Piper's jumping was hit and miss, but I just feel even if you don't have a bet on this horse, the way he sort of floated off the ground, I think he's going to be fun to observe in these novice chases on summer ground over the summer, because if he takes to it, it could have been a very, very fruitful campaign. And I love the way he jumped the last. It was a very hit and miss round of jumping from him, I suppose, in some respects. But he jumped the last like he was warming up to it and he was fresh. And I'd say it would have done his confidence no good. It was a very, very good effort from Pied Piper at Downroyal.
Very good. Yeah, those Calvin horses are kind of finally coming good. It took them a while to get off the break, but they're starting to win now again. I'll give one from Ballydoyle. I suppose I was there this morning, and I suppose it's kind of maybe a little bit more unusual. Like last year, there was City of Troy. The year before that, there was Augusta Rodan. There's no, I suppose, massive hype horse. But I just kind of like the way he spoke about Twain, to be honest. Going for the Guineas, going for the Derby. I'd say he could be a horse who could be fairly exciting this year. Obviously, what he's made in Leopardstown last year and went on to win a Group 1, was it 5 or 6 days later over in France. So yeah, I think Twain could be a flat horse to follow this year from the morning of Ballydoyle. He was fairly impressive to look at as well. But we'll wrap it up there. Thanks very much, Johnny.
I actually didn't realise, Emma, just on that. I didn't realise that on the Caldwell, especially, I didn't realise he cost 570 grand. Pied Piper, yeah, I'd forgotten that, because there was a lot made of. To be fair to the at the sale, like they did do well out of the horses. They got good money for quite a lot of them. I mean, Jazzy Maddie was bought for, I think he was about 50 grand. He was maybe one that got away. I'd forgotten Pied Piper cost 570 grand, and yeah, obviously Caldwell Potter has been the main one, but yeah, we haven't. It's been a long road for Pied Piper, but I've sympathy for connections. Well, if you're paying that amount of money for a horse, you get a lot of slagging. But the way he won on Sunday, they might win some nice pots to the left yet. For all that, I don't think they'll accrue that money.
Hasn't been all bad for him, I suppose. He was third in the county hurl, wasn't he? First start back after that, and look, winning it Downroyal was the odds-on favourite. Probably the least they want, but he might be gone from here. I suppose a few more of them have. But thanks very much. I'm gonna wrap it up there. I think Vincent will be back next week to headline the show again. So back to the three of us then. But thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and we'll have more coming out in the next few days.